Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We're smack bang on time, so I don't like hearing any of the timekeeping nonsense. The transfer window's closed, we're right in the furrows of the international break, and we're here for the Sorare CSC as ever on a Monday tonight, which is good fun. I'm Quinny, and as ever joined by McBride Ace. McBride, good to see you, my man.
Hello, hail, hail. Got the new strip on as well. We were talking about that, so absolute belter. Impressed with that.
Aye, make me jealous. My pre-order hasn't arrived in the post yet. I'll be shooting the postie. And we've got him back. We've got Mark Patrick Rare. Good to see you, my man. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail. Good to be back, guys. Good to be back with a bang. Yeah, good. Just been, obviously, it's been a good period for football. So, yeah, happy. Wow, there's a timekeeping that say there.
Michael was on at 6, thinking it was 6. And then said it was originally scheduled for 6 o'clock. So, sorry, Michael.
Deeply sorry for that, Michael. Yeah. But yeah, been good times for the football.
Yeah, for sure. Looking forward to the Memorial 150th game or whatever it is tomorrow, which, it's tomorrow, which should be good fun. And then we've got a big qualifier with Spain to round it off. And then for us, the boys in green and white, we are going straight into it with domestic action at the weekend. And then we're right into it straight away with Champions League. So this week, from a sort of perspective, it's still manic. We've got a game week finishing off at the weekend there with a lot of big international scores. The Scotland boys as well, doing pretty well. And a bit of midweek action. But there's been a lot going on. I think we actually maybe missed a stream last week. I think we were just all in too many different places and whatever. But we've had the transfer window kind of been and gone. I had a wee video drop on the channel. I think it was earlier today, just kind of laying out the squad and all that good stuff. So I think before we can get into what's ahead of us, guys, I think we've maybe got a wee bit of housekeeping. The transfer window has been and gone. Do you think we've achieved what we probably set out to do at the outset of the transfer window? Before we maybe break down any individual names, any of you want to take that?
I don't think so, man. I think it was. I don't think much was really achieved from the broader scale. I mean, the left back we didn't really get. We didn't get the goalkeeper. I mean, I don't want to go to. I actually think Joe Hart's been brilliant lately. I have to say, despite having slagged him for a fair amount of time, I actually think that he has been incredible lately. But yeah, that was definitely the aim, was to get a goalkeeper, a left back. I've said for some time I think we needed a real powerful, dominating 10. We didn't get that, and I know that yourselves and a lot of other people said that we should have got a good left-sided player to replace Jota. We didn't get that. So I think all in all, a bit poor, to be honest, in terms of the recruitment for that period. And I guess, yeah, happy that we, that we've got some good reinforcements in the team. But again, I don't think that they're going to highly improve the starting 11.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same, to be honest. Like, I felt a wee bit rushed at the end. I think we were kind of in a position where we were trying to plug some gaps. Obviously, Novrocky getting injured and CCV, there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, we've got a lot of centre-backs and stuff, and then we're a wee bit unlucky there. But, yeah, I mean, with Jota going, I don't think we really made any sort of statement signings, like real sort of signings where... And again, it's difficult because Jota, when he came in, wasn't well known, but we've not really bought anyone that's of obvious quality, I don't think. But let's see. I mean, we've not seen Palma yet. We've not seen Paulo Bernardo yet. That's a similar deal to what we did with Jota. But again, Rodgers said, well, that brings us in some depth in midfield. So it doesn't strike me as somebody that's coming in to say, actually, this guy's going to be starting every week. So I don't think we've improved overall, but the one saving grace was I thought our performance level at Ibrox was a lot higher than I expected it was going to be. So it was kind of fearing the worst, to be honest. I think when everybody seen that team sheet, we were thinking, if we concede one early here, we could maybe lose by a couple. So I think looking at how we played there, how well the midfield played and stuff was a good bit of boost. And and Joe Hart is performing a lot better. But I think we're still a wee bit weak, particularly maybe the left back area. Greg Taylor I like, but I just don't think he's playing that well at the moment. So, I still think that's a wee bit of an issue getting into Europe. And yeah, when you say Sean's saying we've not seen a lot of these guys, that is true. We haven't seen a lot of them. I think there's some positives, but I don't think there's been any real sort of major investment to try and make the team better. It's kind of we've brought in a lot of guys who are projects and guys who might be good. So we'll see. But in all honesty, I think although the Champions League group's probably a bit better than we could have expected, I'm still not that hopeful that we'll be beating guys in the Champions League. There we go.
I agree with you. I think it's interesting though, like, because while it's fair to say, yeah, you haven't seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of them play for other teams. Not Celtic. I've not seen Palma, so I can't really comment on him. But the rest of the boys I've seen. But when you look at again that criticism I have about Celtic's recruitment is, sign in players and then don't play them. I mean, it just seems to be more of that again, cut and paste. We're just buying in guys and just they're nowhere to be seen. They're not on the squads. They're on the bench unused. It's a little bit. I mean, look, like you, I thought that the victory over, Rangers, I think was probably. I thought we were probably got a draw out of that game, but the fact that we won it, and the performance levels I thought were really high. I thought we looked far better than Rangers as well. So I was quite surprised about how well we actually performed there. I'm just concerned that might mask the overall ineptitude within recruitment and the preparation for. Get into the Champions League, where, let's be frank, it's going to be a far bigger jump in play. I mean, you've seen how badly Rangers get pumped off a PSV. I mean, that was humiliating. I mean, like, that second game, they could have been done 7 or 8. So I think we should be careful with the pat in the back and getting all comfortable and domesticated by, the standards that we're up against with Rangers. Let's not forget that we did Roy St Johnson the week before, after I tipped us to do them 7. To be fair, they were a poor team and they were holding it like the Alamo. But I hope that we can, pick up and really go and dominate in that group in Europe. But yeah, I'm certainly not as enthusiastic. But the SPL, I fully expect us now to win that league.
Yeah, I do think that the business we've done hasn't really enhanced the best 11. Like, we're coming out this international window with Abada maybe being out for a month now as well. And I had the comment on screen earlier on, it's a good month for the Yang gang. I think Yang will definitely get the chance against Dundee, and we'll see how it goes from there. But again, straight away, if the plan was, right, well, we've lost Jota. We had a front three that was pretty good anyway. Maeda, Kyogo, Abada, if they're all fitting, given the best 11 kind of status, let's give them a shot. Fine. But again, we've got a comment here about, where did it go? Sorry. Has anyone seen Telio? I remember speaking to someone in Australia when the Telio transfer went through, and they hadn't heard about it. And I was speaking to them on a video like this kind of thing. And I was like, oh, have you seen Telio? He's moved over to Scotland. And he went, yeah, he was okay and whatever. And he said, he'll do quite well for Hibs. And that's just what he thought. That's what he thought. He was going to Hibs, so Telio might be decent, but again, it's not something I'm holding my breath on being like the fantastic, we got him for a £5 and now he's amazing kind of thing, So yeah, I think like the squads, like you say, like I've got a kind of a breakdown here of the squads. I might try and get that little screen up that I've laid out, because the squad is very busy now. Like we've definitely got. Have I got it open? Yeah, I do. We've definitely got like a lot of bodies everywhere. I'm just making sure I can see this properly. Yeah. So the colour coordination's a wee bit all over the place, but green should be like the best 11. White just behind it, and then grey is transfer deadline day. Black is really the fringe of the squad, and then yellow is kind of like, I don't really know where else to put them as. So they're yellow. Yeah, so it's a bit busy, you know. We've got buckets of defenders now. All of a sudden, you know, so it's a really busy squad. But I don't know if this window we've became a Champions League group stage team all of a sudden, you know. But it's a very busy squad.
I think like the thing with Feyenoord is that they finished above PSV as well. So when people look at Feyenoord and they think, yeah, that's not a bad draw and all that type of stuff, bear in mind they finished above PSV. The only good thing with playing Feyenoord away the first game is I think that Ueda and Gimenez, etc., are struggling. They've got injuries. Geertruida might be injured, although he might be back at the weekend. So you never know, because actually you might play against some of these teams and maybe they are missing their top players and it evens it out a wee bit. But Feyenoord away is going to be a right tough game. And we know obviously Lazio in Serie A, I think Provedel was the best goalkeeper in Serie A in terms of clean sheets and stuff. So that's not going to be an easy task in terms of turning over Lazio and stuff there as well. And Quinny, you're the man for Atletico Madrid, aren't you? You're quite into Atletico in terms of Sorare point of view, like.
Yeah, that's not going to be fun for us. I can tell you that for nothing.
But do you know? See, those groups were coming through though. I was looking at all of the groups, thinking, I hope we get that one. I genuinely was. I was looking. I was going. I would take that group because and I know that. And by the way, this is me who's sat and been pessimistic in Europe all the time. So I'm just. I think if there was a group that we had a chance in, it was this one. I really do. I think. I mean, I take your point about Feyenoord. What I would say is that they've let a world-class player in Kutsku go to Benfica. You know, and that is a big difference to them. Are they going to be the same team as last year? As you said, Ueda's just been injured in Japanese duty. They can be got at, in my opinion. I really do think that they can be got at. And I think that, you know, realistically, Lazio, a lot of people have been romanced because Lazio, you know, put on that great performance against Napoli last week or the week before. Fair enough, and the Serie A is a really good standard, but can be got at as well. You know, I think we've got to remember we've got really good. If it was the caliber of teams of, you know, the Benficas or you know the real that level above, I would have been worried. I think we got the best draw out that probably we could have got. Atletico, as you rightly say, that is comfortably the toughest, my opinion. I think if we can grab something in the home game and just hope and pray away.
Yeah.
I think so, and like the way the group stage has been drawn, like I think is great for us. Like away to Feyenoord, like in the opening game of the season, like we mentioned, Kokchu obviously leaving, Szymanski's also left, which was a huge part of their, you know, everything. And again, there's a few comments coming in about some other players that are currently injured for the first game, which is like next weekend, you know, or next midweek, I beg your pardon. And we've also got them the last game of the group stage at home, you know. So if the task is simply getting into Europe beyond Christmas, I think that's the perfect way you would want those fixtures to come, isn't it? So
yeah.
you do all the fighting and all the dice rolling in the middle against Lazio and Atleti. And like, again, to add on to your point, Mark, of like the Napoli thing, like if you did watch that game trying to scout Lazio for Celtic, that is not the Napoli that won Scudetto last year. You know, there's been a wee bit of change over there, and
Totally.
You know, that's not as like that's not as a credible achievement as if they did it last year when they had Spalletti in charge. They still had Kim Min-jae and Zielinski and one or two others maybe as well. So, you know, there's definitely, but again, Lazio very dangerous, spent a bucket of money, and Lazio did one of those things that we were kind of all crying out for Celtic to do. They sold Milinkovic-Savic to Saudi Arabia for like 75, 80 million euros. They took that money and they went out and they bought Ravella, Isaacson, Kamada, Castellanos, and probably like one or two other guys with that money. They basically built a squad, you know, like of Champions League level, you know. And, you know, as I'm kind of talking about it, it does kind of remind me of our business, but our business feels like pound shop level. equivalent, if that makes sense. Like, to be kind, that's not being kind at all, but like, they're buying players from, for more money, from a higher profile, and we're buying players from, none of us have won these guys before they've came to us. We have never seen or heard of these guys, and we play everything. Know all the clubs and all the players.
Do you know what
So
sticks
that's what
out?
I mean.
Do you know what sticks out actually when you look at the different areas of the pitch? The bit that concerns me really, looking at your depth chart there, is that attacking midfield area. Turnbull.
Yeah.
If Rio is not fit, then we've pretty much not got a real, progressive engine in
Playmaker.
there. Exactly. And I think O'Reilly's been great for us, and I'm worried about, can O'Reilly be the driving force and creatively against those big teams? I would just be hoping and praying that Rio gets back and gets fit, and is ready to play those games, because we need him. Absolutely need him in there.
I thought Home looked quite good when he came on again at Ibrox, though. I mean, like, he's maybe a bit more sort of lightweight, but I think he's got ability. And looking at Bernardo in there is going to be an interesting one, because he was playing with the Portuguese under-21s, so he must have some fair amount of pedigree. Because you look through that team and playing beside a guy who's currently playing for Benfica, is it João Neves? Or was a guy that can get a game ahead of Florentino Luis, and you looked and it's got packed with quality, and then you get Paulo Bernardo in there. So people having to say, well, this guy's not good enough for Benfica, but Jota wasn't good enough for Benfica, and Benfica have got a team full of kind of high level players as well. So maybe somebody like that could come in and surprise us a wee bit. Maybe good on both feet, a guy who is more comfortable in some of these sort of European type games. But I agree, when we talked about Hatate nearly every show on here, like, if I would want to see him getting minutes at the weekend and starting Feyenoord. It's no offence to David Turnbull, but out of the three in the midfield at Ibrox, he was the worst. So I don't mind like giving him games at home where you need a goal and all that type of stuff, particularly if you get games in between the Champions League, but you don't really want to be going away from home in the Champions League and not having an attack in there. I just don't think I think we'll chance you'll overrun in midfield in terms of not being able to get the ball back and all that type of stuff if you don't have somebody like Hatate in there who can actually look after the ball as well, So
I'm quite glad to see some of the comments getting labelled against David Turnbull. That's quite encouraging. that the viewers are actually switched on to that now. I think in Europe, David Turnbull would get ragdolled, and amongst that level of elite talent that in the Champions League. So yeah, I mean, it's all very well, dancing around some of the ditties that Rangers have in their midfield, but when you're coming up against elite, level midfielders that are playing at, the likes of Atletico Madrid, I mean, that is an absolute super world-class midfield they've got. Turnbull, nowhere near it. Absolutely agree with you. We're going to need to have some solid attacking force that is going to be able to, properly assist the likes of Kyogo and and have the outlets being able to join in and link up play. Yeah, I'm not seeing that at the moment. Bernardo, like, I'd be careful. Like, I hate to be coming in from this angle, right? But my view is that Bernardo, as opposed to being a guy that's going to just come in and like the header, I have just, my suspicion is that he's going to just be given the odd minutes and broken gently into the team. I'd like to see him getting that opportunity straight away. If it meant that Turnbull was out of that team, I'd be happy. But I can't see it. I think Turnbull will start against Dundee, and I think Bernardo probably won't play for about a month.
I was going with that as well. I don't think Bernardo's going to get. And again, like I seen Bernardo play like 2 years ago, so what do I know really? But when I seen him, I didn't have him down as a 10. When I seen him play, it was a bit deeper, and he was
He
playing
was a
more.
6. He was a 6.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not watched him in a while, so I'm not. I'm not pretending to say anything. But like, it does surprise me that people think that's what his job will be in the squad. That's not just from the comment there, but I've seen a lot of people kind of frame him that way, that that's what he's coming to do, kind of thing. And I suppose he could do an Hatate kind of attacking midfield job in terms of progressing and playing those slide rule passes into the channels for Kyogo and the wingers and whatever. Because we'll be dominating possession, we'll be so far high up the pitch that somebody like that can do that. Maybe what would be deeper passing in our team for us, it could be higher up the pitch and a bit more decisive.
But just see on that point though, right? Like see when you watch this season more than last season, right? Because last season, Kyogo played a different role for Celtic. He wasn't coming. God, we're getting huckled already. He's had 6. I've seen him play. Stephen, go and watch him. Jeez. So anyway, you look at the runs that Kyogo makes, the runs that Dyson makes, and when you see Turnbull in possession, he does that pivot where he turns round and he doesn't go for that ball where they are, like clearly the best option. He turns round, pivots, and he goes and plays a wee sideways pass or a backwards pass. And that's not what being a Celtic player is all about. When you're going to be, in games where you need to win. I mean, that St Johnstone game, geez, was one of the most embarrassing games I've watched. I mean, realistically, how we didn't score in that game was shambolic. And again, another Turnbull disaster class in hiding. But I think we're really. I think we're going to get found out. I mean, he's already had a couple of games, Turnbull, where I hate to turn this into the big Turnbull anti-show, right? But I am concerned, particularly when you show that depth map, that's our options if Turnbull, if Hatate's not playing. So, the only thing that I could hope is that we go McGregor, Veal, and O'Reilly, but even that concerns me slightly in Europe. Well, it doesn't concern me slightly, it concerns me a lot in Europe because I just don't think that's good enough. Unless Bernardo comes in and is going to, allow Rio to go forward, or maybe sits as the pivot as McGregor slightly further forward and Rio further forward. But even if you look at McGregor playing for Scotland lately, I think he's been great for Scotland. I think that just taking up that position where he's, just allowing McTominay and McGinn to go forward. I guess him and Billy Gilmore. Even Gilmore's maybe a wee bit deeper than him even, but I think McGregor's looked absolutely phenomenal playing in that role, just picking up possession and distributing it quicker to the guys in forward areas. That could work if Bernardo is going to get into the team, but then that means that you need to take a hit on O'Reilly, and I don't think he'll drop O'Reilly at any point this season, which tells me I can't see if Hatate's fit that Bernardo will play.
The good thing with O'Reilly was, though, he's shown that he can actually play a wee bit deeper, so that's probably good from a tactical point of view. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me with him at Ibrox was the amount of sort of interceptions he made and the amount of times he broke up the player. When he got the ball, he was quite composed on the ball as well. So he didn't play that role where he was just further up the pitch. He was playing a wee bit deeper, and he was getting the ball in the edge of his box and breaking it up. So what really impressed me about Ibrox was we kind of slightly changed the way we were playing, and it worked. And that is like the biggest or the hardest away game of the season for us in Scotland. I know you're going to step up if you're playing maybe Feyenoord or you're playing Atletico Madrid, but it was good to see how we handled that game, and it wasn't just kind of we're just a one-trick pony type thing. So we've got to see what happens, I think, in Europe. Like, I'm not hopeful we're going to get a result in Feyenoord or whatever, but nobody thought we'd get a result at Ibrox either. And we do have a top manager in. Like, it feels as if he's kind of got a bit. He's driving by in a car and giving it but you want to see all that type of stuff as well, because don't want to see him subdued. Like, at the end of the day, brought in a guy who's been managing EPL for a reason, right? He was the best candidate to bring in for the job. So we'll see how he handles the Champions League, but the objective is to try and make ourselves competitive in there, not to be getting hammered every week. At least maybe win a few games, or see if we were in with a chance that Feyenoord game or winning that game to go into Europa League and keep playing on in Europe or whatever, not just looking at it with like 2 games to go and saying, oh, well, we've not got a point here or whatever. We need to try and do a bit better than that, and make Celtic Park quite a hard place to play again. That's an aim, I think.
Yeah,
justice for Awata. I'm on board with that, by the way. Yes.
Remember?
For sure. I think like the whole, in terms of the balance of the midfield and what we see McGregor still clearly has for Scotland. I know we've not really seen it maybe as much in the Cyprus game there, but in that system, like he himself finds him, he gets forward for Scotland. He can still kind of cover that ground and see like the worry of like, oh, what if Rio isn't fit? Maybe, naturally, especially on that kind of team, maybe you look at Odenholm, like some people mentioned at the time, I think in the chat as well as like us. But I think like Awata gives you the option to give McGregor that freedom, gives you the option to play McGregor slightly differently and maybe get a bit more out of him, because with him and Gilmore, that's a true double pivot. So if McGregor sees the space and the opportunity, he's got absolute freedom to go and do whatever he thinks is the best play to make, because he knows in the double pivot, his man will come and cover for him, and that's equally what he does for Gilmore. So, and I don't think we should necessarily move into a double pivot to allow that to happen, but I do feel that like McGregor could do stuff for us, to a better level. I think he can make a better impact on the team in another position than the one he's currently in. He can make a great one in his current position under Rodgers. I imagine, I'm hoping it's Scott Brown with an attack in mind, that's someone that can actually go forward with the ball, pass a forward power once in a while. But I don't think he's really got that same defensive nose that Brown has either. So that's why I think like you'll get more out of him if you just let him, take that extra 10 yards up the pitch and put a bodyguard behind him,
See, I actually hope they don't do what they done to Scott Brown. I mean, do you remember when I remember when Scott Brown burst onto the scene for Hibs. He was a right winger. And I remember that game that Hibs beat Celtic at Easter Road, and he was unbelievable. He was a right winger. And then somehow he kind of went through the transition of being a lump of a centre defensive midfield player. And I'm not taking away from the fact that he had some great seasons, but over the piece, I would say he didn't really fulfill his potential of the guy that that we'd seen busting onto the scene with that energy. And there was a whole bunch of big bids coming down from English teams for him. And I'd like to see a wee bit more of McGregor, the box-to-box stuff that he does so well, and we don't just let him become this, boring, breaking up the play centre midfield player that he's much better than, frankly.
Yeah. I think what he could give you is what Brown gave you, but see every criticism you had of Brown, I think McGregor naturally has that in his game anyway, if you get me. So you could get like the complete guy in that role, the guy that could also maybe do the other bits of the game. It wasn't as one-dimensional as Brown, and maybe even previously Lennon has kind of been in that kind of role over the years, as it were. Yeah. So, but I think equally you're always going to get more out of McGregor if you give him a bit more freedom to actually run the team as like the main guy, as the captain, as get into all areas of the pitch where he's needed to do his thing, and then you have somebody that can just be a bit more responsible and defensively for him. Yeah. So another thing, and again, I know you guys wouldn't have been able to caught it because it only went out earlier today. And again, anyone who's watching this live, fist bump and subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks to everyone that is catching this live. It went out earlier today. Feel free to catch it. But I did a wee video going through the transfer window and going through the moves we've got and looking at the squad, right? And one of the things that kind of occurred to me again when I looked at this squad is really, number one, I don't think we've spent the jot of money And number two, I think if you just put Jota back on top of this squad as it is right now, not even take anyone out, it goes up probably about 5 levels for me in terms of how competitive it probably would be if you've had somebody else in the attacking line of that level. Which then kind of brought me to, and this is where I'll give it to you guys, is have they maybe taken the Jota money and went, let's just do this stuff we're going to do anyway, keep the ship steady, get into this group stage, and kind of take our bearings from there. And maybe I don't know, would we expect a big move in January, or do we think this is the squad that they've planned to build now with the war chest in the window and the plans for moving up and getting to Christmas, being in Europe after Christmas, which is the stated target of the manager and the club when he was appointed?
I think getting rid of guys is difficult as well. I mean, it's taken us a while to get rid of Ajeti. We had to let Barkas go pretty much in a free. James McCarthy, I don't even know if you've got him in that shot, but he just never played a game for Celtic, and obviously he's on a reasonable wage coming from England. So when you sign these guys, it's kind of reassuring seeing people having a bit of a grumble about the guys being brought in at Rangers. It's difficult to get rid of them sometimes as well. So there's a lot of guys in there, and I still think that there'll be some turnover in the squad, but it will take us time to get rid of some of these other guys as well. And then naturally, next season, Joe Hart's out of contract. So will we bother even keeping him, or will we go down the route of saying, well, we can use some of his wage and use some of the budget we've got and spend some money on somebody that's actually going to come in and just go right into his place rather than bring somebody else that's going in on the bench? Because I was laughing about the nightclub policy, 1 in, 1 out, but it's like, oh, we can't get rid of Siegrist, so we're not going to bring in somebody else for the bench. Like, it just seems a bit weird to me because he's hardly ever even on the bench, Siegrist. But I don't think we were looking to address that position like in this window. I think we wanted to address it, the fans maybe wanted to address it, but I don't think realistically Celtic were trying to address it. I don't know. I mean, Lovakovic was a good fee in the end, but Fenerbahce have always obviously get in there. But when you see the fees all the goalkeepers are going for, even Trubin, 11 million euros or something. I mean, that guy's going to be one of the best goalkeepers in Europe at some point. And 11 million euros is nearly within our budget. Playing Champions League, selling Jota for 27 million, plus the fee to Benfica and stuff. So rather than buying more players, I'd like to see us buy one really good player in January, or earmark one really good goalkeeper for the summer and one really good left back, and actually improve the quality of the first team rather than just bringing in 2 or 3 guys that might become good players.
See, the thing is, like, if you take that point, like, I can't see the Jota money, which is a valid point, because there's not just the Jota money, then there's the Champions League money, and
yeah,
I think, I mean, that'd be, I'd like to think that that's how nice and reasonable Celtic are, that they did just take the money and put it back into but I just don't have the confidence and the competency of the people running the club. That, I mean, if you look at in any other job, if you went and signed James McCarthy on that length of contract and the volume of wage, and I mean there was clear lack of due diligence into his condition, because he should never have been passing medicals and all that. He's clearly not in any ability to play for Celtic, and just from a simple anyway. What is where is the competency and accountability? For that type of signing, and there's just been so many that have come in like that are just tiring. So where's the Jota money going to go? The reality is, I think we've probably seen about as much of it as can be expected. There'll probably be, depending on how we're doing. I mean, if we're getting to, if we're running away with the league and get a reasonable performance in Europe, I don't think that they'll spend a great deal. I think there might be a wee appease the fans signing in, January, but there's just a pattern which has always been there with this board and with Lawwell and with the just the lack of competency again. I say like roundabout recruitment. I'm not as bullish about are they going to deliver the kind of caliber of player that we require to go and push us forward. I mean, you look at. I mean, we highlighted that number 10 position or the 10-8 position as being a weakness. But then someone's just highlighted Taylor. We've talked about Taylor. Absolutely a weakness. And by the way, I've always been critical of Taylor, but last season I was really taken aback because I thought he'd improved a lot. But this season, he's really taken a backward step again. Lots of unforced errors, lots of silly mistakes in his game. I'd be worried about putting him in Europe. Defensive, the centre backs, we had an outstanding performance against Rangers. But Europe again, is it going to be as competent against the type of strikers that are going to be clinical, like Griezmann's and stuff? I'm not so sure. But yeah, where is the accountability for those mistakes at Celtic?
Well, it's one of those ones, eh? I guess we'll need to wait for press conferences and see who asks the questions and all that good stuff. But
Get me in.
Get us in. That's it. Well, yeah, it's one of those ones for sure, because like it was quite clear that this summer we were going to be really ambitious and going to try and really push the boat out. And I don't know, I'm always kind of, I think over these last couple of streams we've tried to, and even on the podcast as well on the channel, like trying to work out, what is the mindset inside the club? Is it that, were they even going to put, what we're all really hoping for is they're just going to take that money as a Brucey bonus and just level up what their plans were anyway. But I say it's just trying to work out what the hell the plan actually is in terms of that what extra windfall, because obviously that's not in the plans when you hire Brendan Rodgers, that you're just going to get Jota for 27 million out of nothing, right at the beginning of the window. So it's weird how the ones that are clearly on the, if anyone looks at the squad as we just did on that little thing and looks at who's going out and who you want out and who you need in, like the obvious errors that you would want to get your top targets or get a target in for hasn't been touched at all, So, but again, one thing that then springs to my mind is something that Roger said to us on that press conference when he was unveiled, is like he's learned from his first stint at the club, a big part of his job is keeping players out. Is not signing guys that are not good enough, or just bringing in numbers for sake of numbers. So he is kind of on record as saying that in this return to the club, So to see the amount of numbers that have brought in, it's one of those ones where I don't know if he's contradicting himself or if that means it actually means that these guys that have been brought in pass his seal of approval and we should get behind them when they get on, which we will obviously. But in terms of, I think I'm kind of just spinning out now because I'm going back into thinking about the Champions League group and the games and whatever. I think, it probably gets us back up to speed with the transfer window, the group stage draw and everything else we've had. So when we come out of this international break, we'll have Scotland playing Spain as the kind of last kind of thing for the Scotland boys, and then they'll be back for Dundee at the weekend. We had a question in the chat earlier, and it's probably the most burning question when it comes to the team for the weekend.
Not Scotland, England, no?
We've got Scotland, England, that's a friendly, and then we've got Scotland, Spain. Do we not?
No, Spain's.
That's next month.
Oh, that's the next window. That's the next window.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just correcting you there. Sorry.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm still sorry. Yes, we have that in I beg your pardon. Yes, thank you. And then anyway, so the big question coming into the weekend against Dundee really is, well, we can maybe go into the forward line with the Abada thing, I suppose, but is the defence, Nat Phillips was brought in as an emergency kind of loan signing or whatever. And, Narovche and Carter Vickers are obviously not quite back yet. We've got Lagerbielke and Scales there. We've got Dundee, which we expect to be an easy enough home fixture on paper, but obviously the form before the Rangers game should be noted. But we're very quickly into Feyenoord away, which has like a 6-pointer in this group. So ideally, you've got to imagine the defence, you play against Dundee, plays against Feyenoord is the first thing that I think about. I don't think you want to have a choppy defence over, Rangers, international break, Dundee, Feyenoord. I think you want to have some level of consistency. But you bring Nat Phillips in on loan. Does he come into this team? Who drops out?
Yeah, it's hard because I think Scales played pretty well at Ibrox as well. So it's a difficult one, but I've not seen a lot of Nat Phillips, but anybody I've spoken to him about him thinks that he's a better defender than the likes of Liam Scales. So you either make a decision and say, right, I'm going to bring in Phillips here, I'm going to play him against Dundee and then play him away at Feyenoord. Or if you leave Scales in, then you're kind of almost forced to leave him in, because how could you really start Phillips away at Feyenoord when he's not played any minutes? So I think what will happen is the team will be pretty similar to the team that won at Ibrox, and obviously Abada can't play if he's injured, and the team that's been playing before that, but then he'll bring in guys and give them minutes. So if Hatate's fully fit, I think you might see Turnbull again, but you'll see Hatate come on and get 30 minutes with a view to him starting in the away game at Feyenoord. And if it's a better game, if it's a more successful game where we've scored a few goals, you'll have some chances maybe to rotate a wee bit. But the problem against St Johnstone was, we had chances and we never really took any of the chances. So I think we need to be a bit more clinical and try and, make it a more comfortable game where actually you can start thinking about the next game whilst you're still playing that game. But the issue in the other games in the Cup against Kilmarnock and the St Johnstone game is that you've not really had any sort of luxury of doing that, because you're losing to Kilmarnock and then you're drawing 0-0 at home to St Johnstone. It's like panic stations trying to score a goal in the last 15 minutes in a fixture where Mark Patrick thought we would be 7-0 up at that point, but I'll not mention that again.
But the thing is, this is the embarrassment. If you look at the stats from that game, which I'm sure Quinny's got in front of him, or has the ability to get in front of him, the St Johnstone game. I mean, that game should have been 7-0. I mean, it was just, 19 shots. Yeah. I mean, 75% possession, but again, it's just not good enough. I mean, it's just really, really not good enough. And I know it's easy for me to scapegoat guys like Turnbull, but I'm going to do it because I just don't think that he's that level that, that is required for Celtic in games where the other team is camped in their own box. You need to have someone with a little bit more than just, well, do you know what I'll do? I'll pass the ball sideways. No, that's not. You're not good enough for Celtic if you're doing that.
Yeah. I was going to say here what Jay's got as well. 19 corners, man. Sheer law of averages on decent corner delivery. 19 of them. You've got to get a goal out of 19 corners, I think. If you've got any coordination around set pieces on any level, you wouldn't do a training session and have 19 corners going and nobody scores. It's an absurd volume. I'm totally there that seeing that there really does sober up the result a bit, doesn't it?
Phillips could be good for that as well, because Phillips, obviously Feyenoord are quite a technical team, so it's not like we're playing against teams in Champions League that are going to be trying to sort of play on that. But Nat Phillips is a guy who's really commanding in the air, and also that gives you something in the opposition box as well, because we might be playing against Feyenoord. It might be one of these tight games where actually we need to nick something from a corner or whatever. I just don't think really as a team we really score many goals from like set pieces and stuff. Even when the deliveries into the box is good, we don't seem to sort of pick up sort of many goals for that point of view. But Phillips gives you an obvious advantage in terms of height and all that type of stuff. So we'll see. So see what happens. It'll be incredibly harsh in Scales to actually drop him, I think now, but why is he brought in that Phillips as well, And back to the point earlier, I know it's going back to the transfer stuff, but one of the reasons we've not bought a left back is maybe because we've had to go and outlay wages in Phillips for 6 months. We've had to go and do a deal we weren't really planning to do because the two centre halves have become injured. So you can't really criticise the board for that, because it's not their fault that CCV and Novrocky both get injured, but that might have actually affected the plans for left back, because you're having to go and sign a Liverpool player on loan for 6 months. So So there we go. I'm defending the board a wee bit there. I still don't think it was a good window, but I just think some things never really played out the way you could have expected as well. So,
what's the possibilities we drop Lagerbielke for Phillips and keep Scales? I think Scales get man of the match in the derby is undroppable at this point, really.
yeah.
But we have just bought Lagerbielke for a couple of mil, so and they've both played the same amount of games, really. So.
I tend to agree with you, Quinny. I think I mean, and by the way, McBride, I've seen a fair bit of Phillips, and I know a lot of people have been getting tore into him, saying he's not particularly great or whatever. He's my kind of defender. A proper, no nonsense, ball winning defender. He's so composed, particularly in those dangerous attacks. I would have him in. The only problem that I can see is that he doesn't appear to be fit, and that it seems to be, like he is way off fitness. So I that's why I'd be concerned about, is he going to make the Feyenoord game, obviously meaning that we would pitch him in beforehand. But if he was fit, I would go with him and Scales. I don't think you can drop Scales after that performance, because Scales, a left-footed centre-back, I actually thought Scales against St Johnstone, despite the fact that we were terrible, thought he played well as well. The distribution from the back, I thought was really good. From Scales,
128
passes. I just feel that.
Wow.
Yeah, and I actually think his distribution is really good from that left centre back position. He's not going to be. I know that Brendan was saying after the Rangers game, commanding and defence and all that, but I actually think that he was more useful to us just in terms of his composure on the ball and his distribution. In the Rangers game, as you could see that Lagerbielke just was nervy in that game. In key moments, and had that decision, which clearly was a foul against him, being given the opposite way. I'm sure that the fans would have probably turned a little bit on him, let's be honest. But I think if Phillips is fit, then I would play him ahead of Lagerbielke.
What about, I'm drinking the same tea as Gary Boy here, but would you do this now for Dundee and then Feyenoord, play Scales at left back, keep Lagerbielke in and Phillips, drop Taylor, essentially?
I'm not convinced. I just don't think he's got the athleticism to play that position. I just can't see him getting up and down. I think technically he's actually good, but I don't think he's got that engine to get up and down. I mean, if you look, I don't know if you've seen much of him last season when he was at Aberdeen. They had the odd attempt at it, but no, I would keep him way clear of that. As a left-sided centre back, I think he's brilliant.
Yeah,
I say Michael Ross. I don't even drink coffee, so that's that rumour completely quashed. Just doing a Ronaldo.
Yeah. Water only, that's it. Get rid of the Diet Coke and the Starbucks and everything. I think it's probably more than likely Taylor retains his spot. I think Taylor would really need, I think he would need to gaff up for that kind of move to happen. But Scales did play against Real Betis at left back. He has played left back a few times in his first stint at Celtic. That is kind of, I think, what we thought he was meant to be for us. But I'm told in Ireland he was back free, left centre back, like he was at Aberdeen last season. So it's one of those ones where maybe it just depends how you wanted the defence to play, because I think, like, heat map wise, like, I've not looked at his heat maps, but just from watching the Rangers game and what I caught of the other appearances he's had for us in pre-season as well as competitively, he is kind of in that left of defence area a lot of the time, and as long as he's not been relied upon or tactically we're expecting him to overlap or go and support in an attacking sense, then, maybe, we see lots of defences doing it from Revolutionary. You just kind of slide the back four across and let the right back then become a winger, basically. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But I think that might be a bit too much too soon. Depends on, well, I guess these guys that have been at the training ground this whole international break, Scales, Phillips, and Lagerbielke, and Alistair Johnson for that matter, I don't think he's went away anywhere. So, there maybe is a wee bit of room for a curveball like that. They've been at home for 2 weeks, essentially, all the time they would need to practice on it.
I think if Greg Taylor's not available, like, I wouldn't want to go away to Feyenoord or whatever and play Bernabei, because Bernabei's best qualities, if you highlight his best qualities, are kind of getting forward and, I kind of almost get the makings of more of a sort of left midfielder or a left winger, but he's no positional sense at all, as far as I can see. Like, he just gets caught out of position, and he doesn't have loads of sort of defensive qualities you would want in a rounded left back. So if Taylor wasn't available, I'd rather see Scales play at Feyenoord than see Bernabei. But I actually think one of the things we could do at the weekend is you could maybe start with Bernabei against Dundee and then bring Taylor back for the Feyenoord game, because you did end the game at Ibrox with Ralston and Bernabei playing. I'm not saying that worked terribly well or anything, but that's what we ended up finishing the game with, just because of wee knocks or tightness or whatever. So we've got to be mindful that we're going to be playing a lot of games in short succession here as well. We're going to have a lot of midweeks. Will he maybe just sort of rotate a wee bit and give Bernabei a bit more of a chance at home? But as I said, I think Scales, if Taylor was injured, would be a far better choice to come in there than playing Bernabei away from home. Like, I just don't think he's got the right sort of abilities for that type of role. He's more of a kind of wing back type guy rather than a left back, I think.
I actually think he's more of a left winger as opposed to even a wing back. He doesn't seem to have any, defensive attributes that, can he tackle? I'm not so sure. Can he win aerial duels? Not so sure. Is he intercepting? I have not seen him. Can he get forward? Yep, brilliant. But, I'm not sure that there is a role for him at Celtic. How much was it we paid for Bernabeu? Was it not like pretty...
So 3.5 or something?
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel that was bad recruitment. And I know that was through the Ange era, but was it Ange? was that another one of these Lawlow's beloved technicolored family scouting dream coat that's just wild and wonderful recruitment?
I don't know. Who knows on that one? I think Stephen Donohue's got us here, but with probably the only remaining I don't know about the only remaining. I think McGregor's probably going to have a fair few minutes in his legs after the international break, but I think McGregor will come straight into the team. So basically the main thing is with Abada leaving Israel camp injured, I said it earlier in the stream, it looks like Yang time, but could it be Palma time with Abada being injured?
I suppose you could play Maeda in the right and play Palma in the left. One thing that guy wanted, he was the Aris manager said he was involved in pretty much every goal that they had scored. So, we'll see how good he is and stuff, but he clearly is involved in goals and assists, and he likes to take free kicks and shoot from outside the box and all that type of stuff. So at home against Dundee, him maybe in the left, Maeda in the right might work. I think Yang's shown some promise as well, but I said it on here as well before, like, Vata's shown promise, so we need guys to kind of actually step up and show a bit of consistency rather than just saying, well, they've had a promising game. Well, no use having a promising game and it's 0-0 again. We've got to score a few goals against Dundee. That's the remit. But you could see Palma. I mean, we've spent a few million on him, so why not? Why would he not be chucked in against Dundee?
Yeah. You could probably see him as it's a fair shout. I would say it's a good shout to give him a chance. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it'll be Yang. I think this idea. I think this the concern when you hear like just fling all the new guys in. Clear. It's just not going to work.
Throw them in the deep end.
And it's just like
get them swimming.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I understand the logic, which is just we're Celtic. These guys, should be comfortably a tier above, the caliber of opposition that we're up against. By the way, Dundee aren't terrible. Got a couple of their games this season. I saw the game that they played against Hearts at home, and Hearts got some decent players, and they beat Hearts, and they looked good going forward. So I know that people have in their brain that St Johnstone and Dundee are on about the same level, but I think Dundee are a wee bit ahead of them. I'm not saying that we're not going to pump them, by the way, because I think we are, but it's a slightly better team than probably what people think.
Trevor Carson
and they've got that
goals,
money. I think he'll be picking the ball at the net anyway. But yeah, I just think that you probably won't see. You won't. Well, I know. We'll hope and pray. But I think that you'd like to see some guys getting a bit of time and some real a run of games as opposed to just like you said, Vata, instead of just minutes off the bench and then see you later. Suddenly you're nowhere near squads. But it just doesn't really happen. As you can see, guys like Awata who are, I mean, there's no reasonable reason why Awata is not in that starting 11, never mind, getting reasonable game time, but it just happens. And I think that generally Rodgers, a bit like Ange, don't make big changes. He done it when he was at Celtic the first time round. You very seldom seen Rodgers go from the midweek games to the weekend games, wholesale changes, 2 or 3 guys, and all. Not so much. Didn't really like, even when he brought in Scott Sinclair, off the bench, it was not really that kind of mentality where they just, fling the guy straight in. So I would be surprised if we've seen any more than one of them start.
One kind of note on that is we don't have the Champions League from hell situation we had last season, where it is all the way through midweek. We actually have breaks in it. So the Feyenoord game, for example, is the 19th of September, and the next game is Celtic Park, Lazio come to visit, and that's the 4th of October, which is 2 weeks away. So it's 2 weeks between games rather than basically 5 days or whatever it was last season. Yeah. So there will be rest and recovery opportunities, which is good for the squad. And yeah, Rodgers, you're right. It's definitely our best 11 manager, more than a few others that we've had, certainly.
By the way, like see, like if you remember back to Rodgers' last time in Europe, right? Granted that we got some bad doings. I remember the PSG one, especially Cavani, absolutely ruined us. But I remember as well, we made Man City properly work for it. I went to the one at the Etihad. What a horrible ground that is. And granted that we were already fairly much out of it at that point. I thought over the piece, the 2 Man City games that we played, we gave a good account of ourselves. So I think Rodgers in those games is not, like, granted, PSG were just a freaky team at that point. I don't think Rodgers could have get anywhere near them with that squad that he had. But I feel more confident with Rodgers going into Europe against those teams than I did even last season with Ange going in with I would say a tougher group, and arguably better players that we had. Not arguably, we did have a better team last season at this point. So yeah, but yeah, I definitely haven't seen much of this boy Mitchell for him.
I think we've just signed. Fab Rom tweeted that we signed an extension for this kid. So that either somebody's agents paid Fab Rom to do a little sponsored tweet about it, or the guys got some promise and some pedigree, and Fab Rom has deemed it news that Celtic managed to get that done over the likes of the clubs that were chasing them.
I think our youth players are bloody good, by the way. Like I know a lot of people like shitting on our youth policy and Scottish youth players and all that stuff, but I mean, I watched. I mean, I know that I went all in on Ben Summers before. I think Ben Summers is the real deal. He's obviously got a season away in loan. I've not seen much but the Mitchell frame, but I know that we've got some cracking young players there. And like Michael says, at some point you've got to give them a shot. I mean, let's not forget, by the way, Kieran Tierney was getting released before Ronnie Dahlia was like, "No, get that wee guy in." So and we've got previous for releasing left backs with Andy Robertson and Aaron Hickey. So you've certainly got to be throwing these boys in, because I can see the English teams are sniffing all about our youth team now. I seen that Sheffield United signed another one of our kids the other day there as well. So they're clearly highly coveted players coming through our youth setup. So yeah, it's a bit like McBride was saying about Vata and that as well. You've got to give them a chance at some stage.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a wee bit of Doak as well in the Premier League this season. By all accounts, he seems to be a rising star, to say the least. Yeah,
what a player!
He looks really good, which is a shame. But then I think the thing we were talking about, the frustration with him, but I think he made his first team debut at Celtic when he was 16. So what more can you do? I mean, like I think I highlighted this before too, but there's rules now in terms of when Brexit and everything happened, where if you look at what Man United were doing before and stuff, they were maybe signing guys like PK from Barcelona's academy and all that sort of stuff. But now you've got to focus on talent here. And I think what Mark Patrick Rea says is bang on. That the English teams are looking across the UK because they can't sign guys at 15 from France or whatever. They're not allowed to do it. There's rules against those types of things. And they're coming and they're seeing Ben Doak at 16 or whatever, and just like they're going and throwing the kitchen sink at him. And if Ben Doak says, my agent thinks he can get me a good deal at Liverpool and he wants to go or whatever, then what can you do about that? When Summers has signed an extension, he's went on loan. Lawal has went on loan. I don't really rate him, to be honest. But some guys are signing, but other guys are leaving. And if I was Vata and I was seeing like Yang playing, and I was thinking, well, I'm pretty much as good as him, then I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to leave, because he's actually had some first team minutes. And instead of us saying, well, this guy's going to be a backup and he'll come on and he'll get 15 minutes in the game, we're 3 or 4-0 up, he's now behind the pecking order with this huge squad or whatever that we've got, with all the different wingers, Tillio, Yang, all these guys we bring in. So it's kind of natural that he's getting a bit peeved, because he's looking at that and saying, where's my actual route into the first team here? So at some point, if we're developing guys like this, we better actually give them a chance as well. And that's the point of it. Obviously, this guy, I've never seen Mitchell for him, but if he's a talent or whatever, there's got to be some pathway to him actually getting some minutes in the team at some point. Or otherwise, just bugger off to England or whatever. So
it's definitely a good shout. Like I said, I didn't realise he was a left back. So yeah, I think that we're kind of all over the place. I think the defence probably we're round about what we think is probably going to happen. Up front, probably with the absence of Abada, there's just a few different possibilities. It could be Palma gets chucked in, we might see Yang continue. But midfield, we've kind of danced around midfield throughout the show quite a while already. Obviously, against them at their place, Turnbull and O'Reilly did start. Now, I've got on my notes here, whenever I get a Sorare card injured, I've got a few Hitates for anyone that's not aware of that by now. I write down the day they get injured, when it happened, and then when I see reports saying he will be out for this amount of time and recovery time, I write it down so I don't forget exactly when I'm expecting people back into training and whatever. And I've got Hitate going back into training on the 12th of September, which is tomorrow. So, international break and all the rest of it. I hope to see him in training once Celtic start doing pictures and all that kind of stuff of him back. Hopefully, he's back in training. But yeah, midfield for Dundee, and subsequently what we would probably expect to be the midfield against Feyenoord. Is it Turnbull, McGregor, O'Reilly again?
I think it probably will be, to be honest. I think people will maybe not be that happy about it, but I think that even if Hitate's fit, I can still see him coming through the bench. maybe even Turnbull playing a bit and then Hatate playing 20 or 30 minutes and then Hatate starting. I guess you could just throw Hatate in as well, but Rodgers was quite stubborn with starting Turnbull at Ibrox as well. You know, he wasn't good in the away game against Aberdeen. We won 3-1. He was probably the worst midfielder. He wasn't good at Kilmarnock, but he still started them at Ibrox as well. So I honestly do think he'll probably start at the weekend, but I don't think he'll finish the match. And whether or not he then starts in Feyenoord and stuff, I'm not really so sure. But I'd like to see Hatate at least get minutes at the weekend so that he's in the running for a selection at Feyenoord. Because don't worry, we're going to be playing against Feyenoord with players they've got guys like Quentin Timber, Weaver. They've signed Ivanisevic. They've signed. They've got guys like Paxal. So even if they've got Gimenez and Ueda, they're really good in the middle of the pitch. I know you're saying Mark Pasha get rid of Kocher as well, but Weaver, he was playing for the Dutch national team, so they've got good players in there as well. And Quentin Timber's got legs; he can get up and down the pitch as well. He's quite dynamic. And Zerouki, who was brilliant for 20 last season, can't even get a game for them. So they've got a lot of quality in the middle of the pitch as well.
I think my point about they've Feyenoord's recruitment has been brilliant. There's no doubt about that. I mean, you can see that they've lost big players, but they've also brought in big players, and you know, as you say, we've a phenomenal player. The thing is that, and where I see opportunity for Celtic and why I was actually genuinely bullish, and I still am. I think that I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I think there's a chance of an upset for us. But when I see Turnbull in a lineup against them, I'm worried, and the reason I'm worried is like for what you're talking about, like those kind of like Timber and Weaver and guys and that are able to just pass round players. Now, if you're Hatate, what would Hatate do? Hatate would chase them down. He would harry them. He'd pressure them. He'd make them release the ball. O'Reilly's not really going to do that. So you're really looking at McGregor. Is he going to do that? Absolutely. Hatate. Could you see Turnbull doing that? I'd be really concerned to see Turnbull in that position pressing against those guys, because he just get absolutely humiliated. That's a good shout, by the way. Absolutely, Iwata would be phenomenal, but we can just forget that because he's not going to play him. But I would love to see Iwata. Would be brilliant there, absolutely brilliant in that system where we do. Because if you look at, and I thought this was so good for against Rangers. I thought that Tavernier had one of his poorest ever games. I've seen him in an Old Firm game. I know he's been anonymous in some games, but I thought he was so preoccupied with Dyson Maeda. He was just so preoccupied. He just couldn't do anything. And I just feel like if you're getting Maeda to press high up the pitch, because Maeda is one of the best players in the world at that ability to press. In fact, I think he is the best player in the world at that. So you need somebody to be coming in there to support him quickly and in that pressing capacity. Now, you always seen that, last year, Ange had Rio working quite closely with Dyson, which was really, really powerful. Never really worked with any real great effective use in Europe, but we're up against teams like Real Madrid. But yeah, I just feel that we need to be careful if we're going to play Turnbull in those fixtures, particularly if we are playing that high press with requiring someone to go then and after it pick possession up or win the second ball. That I just don't see that. And I mean, even O'Reilly is, O'Reilly's infinitely better than Turnbull. I don't think we could even dispute that. But even O'Reilly would put in a challenge. Turnbull's he's just an empty body in that area of the pitch. And those, if you're going and you're wanting to leather a Dundee, then, by the way, I fully expect him to go and leather Dundee. I don't have, that's absolutely his level. But
yeah, go get a couple of goals and an assist, finish on 100, and that'll be Turnbull for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm relatively optimistic that Hatate would just get thrown straight back in, as long as he is in training and he's recovered successfully and all the rest of it, because he's a very motivated individual, as we know, and I think Rodgers has been missing him for the games that we've struggled in. He's been a very big absentee. So I think if I'm the coach, I want him on the pitch. I want him getting 70 minutes in this game and then pull him off and then get somebody else on and get ready for the midweek. That's what I would think and hope. But again, in certain situations, I would think and hope maybe give Iwata the shot, like we spoke about, maybe some other possibilities. But I think at the moment, like O'Reilly is, I brought O'Reilly. I agree. Iwata, Rio, and Kalmak would be good in an away situation and all the rest of it. So I don't want to, I'm definitely on board with that. Don't get me wrong, but O'Reilly is, I think, firmly showing a good level under Rodgers already, and I think O'Reilly's only going to continue to. I think in the Champions League he'll be one of our best players. I think is probably what I'm getting at here. So no one's asking for him to be dropped. It's just an alternative you might want to do tactically when away in, the Wanda. As we'll soon get acquainted with it.
Do we? I mean, or do we just play the four of them? And just because the fact that Abada's out. We play Kyogo with Dyson on the left, or allow them to interchange.
We've definitely spoke about this on the stream before, maybe with the three of us and Sean, or maybe with, I don't know, but definitely Sean was involved in it at some point as well. And doing that whole box, the whole Red Bull box system, we've definitely got the players to do it. I think it's the left back who maybe lets us down for it now, but I think we all kind of thought that might have been something that the manager would have toyed with in pre-season, because it's proper possession football and the amount of, if you have Kyogo and Dyson both doing that mega press together, and that's all they're committed to, and then that's a real USP the team has that you can then build a bit of a function around and try and just capitalize on. But I'm not too sure we would see that at this point in the season.
Maybe a way at Feyenoord, because like Abada's main sort of strength is, even at Ibrox, he was really dangerous getting down the right hand side and stuff like that as well. So if you don't have him, do you bring in Yang, who you've seen the performances for Gangwon and stuff, for his stats and everything? He was a bit of a kind of passenger because he's more of an attacking player. So maybe you'd be better actually packing out the midfield a wee bit and like being a bit more compact and playing the two guys up front, because 4-3-3 or whatever is not necessarily going to work away from home at Europe. And the good thing about the game at Ibrox was Celtic seemed to kind of set up a bit differently. Like Matt O'Reilly was a lot deeper than he was playing in other games, and it did work, because when he was on the ball, he was good on the ball, and he was getting involved in the play, intercepting. But Rangers' tactics probably suited us a wee bit as well, because I think a lot of times they were kind of launching it and missing out their own midfield, and we were winning the ball back. But it still is interesting. I mean, the thing with Hatate is that he never played Hatate in the first game of the season, and never played Hatate in the game away against Kilmarnock when he was fit. So the lagging doubt in my mind is that if he's fit for Saturday, will he start him over Turnbull? I don't think he will. I would want Hatate to start. I think he's our best midfielder. But I actually think he will.
I actually think there was a realisation though, McBride, where that game against Aberdeen, I think there was the penny dropped and he went, oh, what the fuck have I done? This is really not working. And you've seen in that 15 minutes when Hatate came on, he already done more in that little spell in a game that actually genuinely was a test for us. And I think you could sense a realisation that, we need that type of player. As opposed to, I mean, Turnbull, a jobber in that position. I mean, he's clearly got talent, but not what's required at Celtic.
So I think otherwise, but that's probably the way centre backs, obviously I'll just leave them blank for this purpose, but I think that's probably the way we would look at it for the next. I want Hatate back in. I really hope he's back in. And I think he'll probably keep the system. He'll probably stick with Yang because he has had little patches of being decent. I don't know. I think Palma is a shout, but I don't think so. The worry I have, right, is you put Maeda back on right wing because it's clear as day that you get way more out of Maeda on the left. But by all accounts, this Palma is left wing specialist. That's his job. So someone's going to be the square peg in the round hole in the front three again, which was maybe something that Maeda gained by Jota leaving, was that he was going to be on the left rather than on the right. So it'll be interesting to see if Palma does come in, what that actually, then the implications of it are, in particular.
Maybe he's more of a Haksabanovic impact player.
Yeah, that's some impact he made in the end. Yeah.
No, but I actually think that's true. By the way, I think that is the team for Saturday, for this team that you've got here. I just think that that's what I see Palma as a signing. I think that he's a depth signing to go in to go in behind Dyson. I mean, the fact that Celtic have just signed Abada for a longer term deal, he's clear. That's not with, that's not with the thought of getting him dropped so that we can bring Palma in. I think Palma. I mean, look, time will tell. We'll soon see if he's going to, make some impact, particularly in a similar way that Jota did, where he's able just to pick up the ball and be a little bit more, forceful in the dribble, maybe a little bit more direct and in control on the dribble. So possibly, I hope from in terms of the perspective of games where they are a bit, like the St Johnstone game where you're needing to break down a tough defence, you really need players that are going to that are going to go and pick up the ball and beat a man and produce something out of nothing, a bit similar to, I guess we've seen with Jota, but dare I say, players, and a guy I was never a huge fan of, but the fans loved him, Thomas Rodgers, and even guys like Chris Commons. Did you see Commons in that tournament?
He loves being retired, doesn't he?
I think he's 8, Chris Commons.
He's consumed Eden Hazard, is what he's done.
But anyway, he put Chris Boyd to bed, so that was at least good to watch. But yeah, I think for sure that we're missing a player like that. To whether it's an impact from the bench, like you said, that Palma might just be a depth player for the bench. But we are certainly missing a player like that. There's no question.
Yeah. So, guys, I think to finish the show off, we normally do score predictions to try and finish us off. Now, we've been known to be quite bullish, in particular when facing the minnows, but you've gave us a wee bit of realism. They're not that much of a write-off, as you're telling us. They've got some players that got promoted last year. Maybe they've got a bit of a game plan, but it should be one of those ones we should be rolling them over. I'm going to go with a solid 4-0. I think going into Europe away, I think we'll get a couple of goals. I think we'll get the party atmosphere on, and I think we'll get a debut. I think we'll get somebody scoring their first goal. Maybe somebody like Palma, maybe somebody like Bernardo off the bench for 5 minutes at the end with a tap in or something. But I think we'll get some new people scoring goals.
I'll go 3-0. But we've not actually been scoring that many goals, so I know in our head we're thinking we're capable of turning somebody over, but we haven't actually done it yet. So if we get 2 or 3, if we get 1 or 2 in the first half, that would be good, just to keep things settled and stuff. And we did play better at Ibrox as well. So if we start fast, I think maybe a 3 or 4-0, but I'm going to err on the side of 3-0. What do you think, Mark? 10-0?
I think 5-0.
Right.
You were only 7 away the last time, so it's like...
Do you know what? See, the thing is, like, in those games, the problem is that there's a flow that goes with those types of scores. You know, you need to be scoring at particular points. You know, and that's when it kind of, you know what it's like. Anyone that's ever played football at any kind of level, you know, if you've been if you're winning or you're on the receiving end, you just the line between, you know, 2 and 7 is not that big. It's just about people's confidence, and suddenly they're just like, ugh, heads drop and they're gone. And you know, if you look at some of those St Johnstone players with, you know, Andy Considine at the back, who's like 36, Turnbull. Hey, listen, that'll probably happen, Michael. But you know, I think Dundee is a proper jobber team. You know, they've still got a lot of those players that, you know, were with them as they went down, and Cammy Kerr, who just seems to have been playing for 40 years. But they've got lots of good kids, and they're making. I've got a couple of kids at Mulligan and one of the other boys in midfield playing with the Scotland under 21. So they've got some good young players as well. But yeah, we should be beating them comfortably, and be good. Just, you know, prior to us getting into the European game with a wee bit of confidence of scoring goals, like you say, McBride. We've not been battering teams, but we've certainly been dominating possession at home, and you know, hopefully we can get a score to fit that.
Let's hope so. Goals and decisive should be raining down, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. To anyone that's going to the game, make sure you travel safe, have fun, and yeah, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.